Insects live in nearly every habitat across the globe. Moreover, it is estimated that currently there are 10 quintillion insects in the world. Entomologists who are researching, classifying and naming the insect species have managed to name only 1 million insect species, which is only 1/5 of all the insect species. Studies estimate that 4 million insect species are yet to be categorized. Albeit some insect species may be especially annoying in the summertime, insects are a vital part of every ecosystem on the planet because they are responsible for pollinating plants, decomposing plant and animal matter, and they serve as a valuable source of food in general, the natural food chain. After all, over 400 to 500 million tons of insects are eaten each year by birds alone. And you may wonder, how do these tiny creatures store energy? Can insects get fat as well? How do they know when they should stop feeding? We're here to give you all the answers you're looking for. Moreover, if you're interested in learning more interesting facts about numerous subjects, hit the subscribe button to our channel and ring the notification bell to stay up to date with our latest facts and news. To get to the bottom of the issue of whether insects can get fat or not, we first need to understand how they store their energy when feeding. When insects are feeding, the nutrients they consume get absorbed by the gut, which further transfers the fat to a protein called a polypoprotein. Since fat doesn't dissolve in water, it needs this helper to move the protein through the blood. Insects do not have livers. They have a fat body, an interesting organ that works as both fat tissue and liver. This is where the insect's fat ends up. Interestingly enough, the fat body organ in insects is one of the few organs that are situated throughout the entire body of the insect. And due to this, it can act as a sensor for everything that is going on. The fat body organ is where all the nutrients get stored, and this is also where the energy they need for migrating comes from. The dynamic tissue of the body fat organ in insects is involved in multiple metabolic functions and stores and releases energy in response to the energy demands of the insects. When insects store energy reserves, they store them in the form of glycogen and triglycerides in the adipocytes, the main fat body cell. These adipocytes can store great amounts of liquid reserves in form of cytoplasmic liquid droplets. These are essential for the growth and development of the insect. For some species, these stored food and energy reserves in the insect's body come in handy when they enter a state of diapause or hibernation during winter and their metabolism slows down. As we can see, the fat body is a pivotal organ in insects' bodies. It not only stores reserves of body fats in insect's body, but it also tells the brain what the developmental situation of the insect is like. Or when insect wants to produce eggs, it provides the proteins required. Some insects that suck blood, such as bedbugs, mosquitoes, lice, fleas, ticks, arachnid, and lice, are visibly larger after feeding. And we already know they have the capability to store fat, which means insects do get fat. The question now is, how do insects know when to stop feeding? You may be wondering whether there is some sort of mechanism that tells them when to stop and when to feed more. Some species of blood-feeding insects, like mosquitoes or phlebotomine sandflies, do have systems that tell them when to stop. When these insects are feeding, they undergo a process known as prediuresis. During this process, they excrete urine as they feed to concentrate the blood protein, which is in the nutrient-rich part they need, and filter out the other parts of the blood, like water, which they don't need. What does this do to them? This helps them to reduce their weight and allows them to fly off after they've finished feeding. With this process, typically they can both retain all the nutrients they need and maintain the weight that allows them to fly. As for whether they have any mechanism that signals them when to stop feeding, some insect species like mosquitoes do have a system, specifically an insulin signaling pathway that tells them when they've had enough. Insects that do have this system have insulin-like peptides, ILPs, that work similarly as insulin works for humans. ILPs send a quote-unquote full signal to the brain to tell it when the insect is full. Moreover, insects also have nerve cells that sense the level of abdominal distension, which additionally determines when they will stop or start feeding again to become full. It is interesting how such a complex system and organs can fit in such a small body. If you liked what you've learned today, don't forget to hit the like button and we'll see you in our next video with some new, interesting facts.